Okay. All right, so here are the 5 pieces, or 6 moving pieces, including your big idea. So you can just check that one off. You guys have that. You have a succinct way of stating your big idea, and we're gonna figure out how to state it in the talk, but I'm gonna put a check mark next to it for right now, okay? So 6 moving pieces. The very first one, because I think it's probably one of the most important, is the problem. You must state the problem clearly. Okay, even if you think that everyone gets the problem, if you're going to bust a status quo, we have to know your definition of the status quo that you're busting. All right, so I just saw a talk the other day that did this really well. It was an interview coach who was helping to solve the problem of age discrimination in an interview or in getting a job, right? So immediately, he not only states the problem, but he actually kind of even like made the problem seem really bad by asking us, what are all the things that a boss may discriminate, may think about an older person that may create job discrimination? And we had to list them. This was an interactive talk, but, and then he put them up on the board. Hates technology. What was another one? Doesn't want to learn new things. Thinks they're the expert. Likes to do it the same old way. Like, all of these are getting put on the table. And meanwhile, I'm going, uh-oh, he's not going to be able to solve all these problems. So when he did, in his talk 5 minutes later, that's really impressive. So you want the problem to be big and affecting a lot of people, because your big idea is going to be an answer to it. So stir the pot a little bit and get the problem on the table, okay? And then the second one is what you found in your own life. We need this to be personal to you in some way, even if it happened to your cousin or your friend or something like that. I think for most of you, you have a very personal element of your topic. But we need to have you, what is the word I'm looking for? Say succinctly how this affected you and what you found. Now, this might be, you might have experienced more of the problem in your life, or you might have experienced more of the solution, which is your big idea. Or you may have experienced both. For a lot of you, you had the problem, you solved it, now this is your contribution to the world. That's totally great. That's going to work really well for you. But in a TED Talk, that's only, for our purposes, your audition is 8 minutes. So we got to get that story down to about a minute or 2. That's it. So it's got to be succinct and clear. And yeah. So those are the 2 that we're going to work on today. I think my next slide has that. Those are the only 2 we're gonna work on today. And you've got your big idea, which we can throw in the mix if you want to flesh that out, how you're going to describe that to your audience. But I want you to see the other 3 that we're going to do next week, which is, what does the research say about this? And the research could go either way. It could be supporting the status quo, or you could find some research that actually supports your new idea, which is usually the best. Usually in a TED Talk academic audience, you want to bring out research that supports your idea. Okay, but you will watch some TED Talks where the research talks about the old way, and that's the status quo that they're busting. And then next week too, results and the big picture of what's possible if your idea were to take root and take flight including the effect on whatever your timely topic is that we kind of talked about last week. Okay? So I'm mostly throwing those to you guys this week because I'm going to give you a little piece of homework that's about the research. All right? But like I said, that's what's coming up. So the problem is, and in my life I've found, those are your 2 writing prompts for today. And that's what we want to get succinct today. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. I think you guys got that. And I'll put it back up. So questions about this, as things are coming to your mind, any questions? Okay, I see some wheels turning. Let's go ahead and jump into some writing. I'll give you at least 10 minutes to just brainstorm what comes to mind about describing the problem and then in your own life you've found. All right, and just chat with me if you have a question. That worked well last time. And I'll go ahead and put those prompts back up too. And like I said, don't be afraid to make the problem pretty serious. Just had a question in the chat about, can it be more than one problem? Yes. Go ahead, and this is the part where let it be more than one problem. We'll give you some feedback, maybe which problem is the strongest one, but go for it. You can solve more than one problem. Okay, and just in your last few minutes here, as you've brainstormed about in your life, I want you to make sure that it includes at least one vivid moment that you can tell as part of your story. And we're going to do a whole class on stories, so just want you to flesh out maybe a vivid moment or two that might capture this idea, might represent the problem or the solution. Okay, just getting any last thoughts down. Anything else that needs to get on the table? Awesome. Okay. Well, I really appreciate you guys going for it. I saw everyone's wheels turning even before I, let you go to write. So I'm hoping this was, sort of top of mind, sort of what you wanted to say, and we're just kind of giving it a little structure and shape. Yeah. So cool. So I'm going to go in reverse order of who all shared last time we shared. Since Dana says she's a go first all the time, I'm just going to not let her do that. Just drive her crazy for a little bit. And I think that would mean, Morgan, are you up first? No, Mary's up first. No, yeah. Morgan's up first. Yeah, Mary shared. At least that's the order of my notes, right?
Oh, no. Mary, didn't you go last? I'm pretty sure you went last.
You went last, Mary? Oh.
Mary, then me.
How weird. I've had you in different order. Well, cool. Okay, so Mary. Uh-oh, we lost other Mary.
I think she's going to try to call back in and see if she can get better video, maybe.
Yeah, probably is. Okay. So Mary, what did you come up with? And remember, this is your time to use as you want for this is your focus group here. But a really great way is to share your ideas and then leave a little time for feedback. Okay.
Okay. So the problem is, I just kind of wrote just what came to mind. So the problem is there's a disease that is killing our youth every day. This disease is totally curable without drugs or medical interventions. As adults, parents, and society, we inherently pass this on to our children without realizing the devastating effect it has on our loved ones. The disease is perfectionism, striving to be and live a standard that doesn't exist. It's unreachable, and the effects that has on those who have made it their identity and purpose to be perfection. That's that's my problem.
Okay. And what does this look like? Is what I'm kind of still, as an audience member, I'm like, what does she mean by perfectionism? Give me a little bit of glimpse into the world of what this looks like.
So perfectionism of striving to always achieve a idea of something that is not really reachable, because things are always changing.
Okay. So if my kid is potentially affected by this, I might see them doing what?
So you would see them being constantly disappointed in themselves because they're not reaching the goals that they want to reach, or they can't maintain it. It might be that, in this moment, the weather is perfect, but that's only for this moment, right? And you have no control over it. I think that's the other thing, is we don't have control over the things outside of us. So to think that we can control everything, kind of leads us into that place where is perfection even really truly possible?
Okay.
So it's an idealistic fantasy that we create about what will also make our lives happy and perfect, rather than what can we be in the moment that would make that so, rather than always reaching outside of ourselves for that thing that's going to make it perfect. Like what that's the whole mystery of it, is what is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, great. So are you guys feeling enough of a problem here that she's solving, or what else do you need to know to really feel the problem? Dana and then Linda. She did get her hand up first, didn't she? Let me unmute you, Dana. Ready, go.
It doesn't matter. I guess what I'm questioning is, where do these kids get the disease. I mean, I have to tell you, I was a kid, and unless somebody told me I had to have a perfect grade, I was just going in grades, and well, anyway, just getting grades, not worrying about that part. But the point is I guess I'm asking that we need to know where this perfection, thought of perfection
Comes from. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, are you saying they're born with this? Are you saying it's the parents' fault? Are you saying it's TV's fault? Where's this coming from? Okay, that's great feedback, Linda. Oh, let me unmute you too. Yeah, you got yours?
Okay. My nephew actually has this and has been in treatment for years for it. And this is actually quite serious. I also considered myself a perfectionist growing up as a child. It's a way to control my environment. And I was the only one that controlled me. And so if I didn't have the best, but his is even over and above that. So it was accompanied by extreme pressures on himself, sometimes to a point where he was unable to do additional things. Like he would be frozen by getting a B+ on a paper. If he didn't get an A and it wasn't an A, in his head, he had failed. And he would come home, he would cry and scream and throw temper tantrums and not be able to interact with the family, and just not having appropriate reactions to what he perceived as failure. And failure was anything other than number one. And this was true in many other parts of his life. And he's better, but he's a pretty incredible kid who does really, really well in school, and is known in the state for his diving and all this kind of stuff. But and the other thing I want to say is that my brother and his wife, they never tried to create, like, they didn't approve of it. They never were like, oh, you have to be perfect, Joel. You have to have A's every single paper. They never said that to him. He created it somehow in his head. Mm-hmm. I don't know where he got that from, per se, but it was very, very serious, and an inability to cope and manage in everyday life and in the classroom.
Okay, so I'm starting to feel like the severity of the problem as you talk, Linda. And of course, we haven't heard from Mary's, like, what she's found in her life, but that description of the problem is helping me connect to this problem, Mary.
Mm-hmm. I got that. Yeah.
Okay, great. So
I see also in as part of this problem, like that gaining control. I think that gaining control comes from wanting to have that acceptance of self. And so again, it's not intentionally as parents or society or the world that we do this, but we only accept people in certain ways. Like kids get the idea that if I only succeed at certain things by getting A's or doing things perfectly, that's how I get accepted. And where do they get those ideas? And that is in part of my story.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. I think that's helping us flesh out the problem.
Morgan had something, I think.
Oh, great. I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah. So something that comes up for me, Mary, is, and I don't know if this is something that you would maybe want to talk about or just think about, but when everyone's talking about failure, and like, so there's children out there that set these goals, and then if they don't meet them, they think I'm a failure instead of I failed, like I didn't meet my goal, but they like feel I'm a failure instead of I didn't meet my goal, I'm a failure. It defines me.
Yeah.
And then it sends them into like this panic, and then I can't do anything. So I'm going to set even higher goals for myself. And it's like this cycle that just keeps getting worse and worse and leads to, very serious.
Right.
things.
Yeah.
Great.
Very good.
Great.
Okay.
That's great.
And then in your last just 1 minute here, you want to give us maybe a vivid piece of your story of what you've seen?
Well, right. So it came through in my own experience. So the moment when I received the call that my son had taken his life, and the realization that I came to through that journey of my part in that, of wanting him to be the one to make my life perfect for all the failures that I had had. So that's just kind of a brief thing about that part, about my own failures. And I do start it off by saying I'm a recovering perfectionist myself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be a really vivid moment that brings it home how bad this can get and why we really need a solution for this. Yeah, for
One
sure.
quick thing. Quick thing. Mary, I think that, I don't know if you're going to mention this, but the fact that so many parents do that, but it's because of love, like it's not because of, it's literally because you love your child so much, you want them to, like, just a side note, love.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you think you're doing the best for them.
Yeah.
So.
Amanda, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I switched computers.
Yay.
Real quick, Mary, too, because perfectionism, I struggled with it. My daughter's struggling with it right now. And it's really a silent disease that most people do not recognize. And it's typically the kids that look like they're doing great. They have good grades, they're athletes, they're stars, all of these things. They are incredible. I'm getting goosebumps because it's such a personal topic for me. They are brilliant at hiding it. And I think for people that don't understand perfectionism as a disease, how could they? It is
Right.
not easily recognized. And I don't know if that ties into what would be helpful for just impact. But I thought I'd throw that out there.
No, that's great too. Yeah. And because of those kids, those are the ones everybody says, you're doing such a great job. Keep it up. So, yeah.
Totally.
Keep cracking the whip. The parents keep cracking the whip. The kids keep cracking the whip themselves. So This is even more of a reason why we must spend time on the problem. I know you're such a positive person, Mary. I don't want you to miss this because it is a hidden problem. So we really need to like paint this picture because you can't see it until you paint the picture.
Okay.
So a little extra boost there. Excellent. Okay, let's keep moving here. Over to Morgan.
Okay, so I kind of need help picking, well, I have multiple problems, and then I have two vivid moments.
Great.
One for the problem and one more for the solution. So my problems are not teaching empowerment around sexual violence, not teaching empowerment around abuse in general, not teaching them, period, and not teaching the correct info around empowerment, sexual violence, and abuse.
Yeah.
And then should I say my moments?
No, let's hang out here for a second with your problems.
Okay.
So let's solve the problem of if we go with not teaching empowerment around abuse or sexual violence.
Mm-hmm.
I want to take a poll from the group of, are those similar in your minds? Are they totally separate in your minds? You know, does she need to pick one? Dana, gut reaction?
To me, what we need is to teach empowerment. Sexual abuse, sexual violence, and just domestic violence, you know, those three, you've got to teach empowerment to resolve those three things or all of these things. So it's the empowerment part that will address those issues at large, in my mind.
I would tend to agree. They're all in the same neighborhood of the problem.
Yeah.
So for you to use them interchangeably is actually going to help you say this is a big problem.
Because they're interchangeable in my story.
They are interchangeable in your story?
Yeah.
Great.
I mean,
let's just treat them
Okay.
I mean, that's my perspective. I want to check in Mary Linda. Mary, is that pretty right on? She's got the same neighborhood of stuff here. Mary Russ?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with what Dana said. And in terms of like, they all kind of, I think it's really good to identify all the different problems because people use different language for all of those problems, and being able to clearly state, you know, so that many different people can connect. Because if you say, you know, sexually assaulted, well, I was never sexually assaulted, so whatever, you know, or domestic violence, well, I was never in a domestic violence, or
Yeah. But
sexual
if you
abuse, or
group
something, like
them,
somewhere someone will be able to touch on it and be like, oh, I know someone, I had that, or something. But sometimes our language that we're using is not the same. So I think her sharing all of that. But I agree with Dana that I think that it's all going to come down to one or two solutions.
Yeah. My solution is empowerment.
yeah, boom. And listing them out is going to help more people connect. I think that's a great point.
Okay.
And
So
Okay.
I see that by not teaching empowerment, the result of that can be sexual harassment, can be these other things that can happen.
Yes.
And so I guess my question is that you want to focus on those two results of not being empowered, or that it's about empowerment?
Yeah, I kind of, well, like my story supports those two, let's see what it is. Like
Okay.
what that ends up as. Like I was not taught that. I was not taught about these things at all. So therefore my story.
Okay, and before we get to the vivid moments of your story, can you think of and write down either now or later a few vivid examples of where they clearly taught the opposite? You know?
Yeah, I know one right in my head, like right off the bat.
Let's hear that one.
Rape is going to be someone, a stranger jumping out of a bush and you scream fire. You literally scream fire and that's it. It's no what happens after if it were to happen to you. It's no, this might be someone that you know. It's none of that. None of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, more examples like that are going to
Okay.
help us see the problem is, you know what, that's fear. And it's even saying if you scream rape, no one's going to listen. I mean,
Yeah.
that sets up the mindset from the beginning that no one cares about rape. It's
Yeah,
horrible.
I remember in my own personal life, after I got raped, that I didn't know whether or not I'd actually been raped because I didn't know the difference between like what was happening and what was actually rape, because
Right.
I was on like it was a person that I knew. There were certain levels of consent, but then there wasn't.
Right.
And so I was confused in my own head about what had actually happened, you know. And when the
It's
cops got
powerful.
involved, you know, the cop was like, "Oh, that's rape," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's rape." You know, it was like I didn't have the language for that or the understanding of it.
Right.
So I wonder if the problem is that kids are being lied to about these issues. I mean, I get that they're not being taught empowerment tools, but they're also being taught misconceptions. Like they're not being given the facts, and, you know, they're not clearly defining what's happening and what could happen.
So that was one of the problems I wrote down, not teaching the correct info about these things.
Yep.
But when you say that they're being lied to, I don't know. To me, that's like there's an intentional, and I know it's not really meant to be intentional probably, but it's like the problem is so bad that they're being lied to.
It's so unclear, it becomes, you might as well call it a lie.
That's right. Like Morgan, somebody tells you that rape only happens from a stranger. Is that truth or a lie?
Yeah.
It's a lie.
It's a lie.
or even, you might even be able to look at the research and say that rape mostly happens from a stranger is a lie.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's talk to Mary Russ real quick. I see you've had your hand up a couple times. Did you want to chime in?
No, I was just going to say that it seems like the problem, you were wavering back and forth between these two concepts, and really the problem is the way that we're educating the kids. That's the real problem. And what's happening is the way that it's coming out, you don't even have to label it, but what's happening, it is not empowering our kids so that these two things stop happening.
Yeah.
That's the problem, is the way that we are looking at it and educating our kids are enabling these two things to continue.
So that's
is that kind of what you think, Morgan? That's what the problem is?
I think so.
Yeah.
And then I just don't know if I should use my moment as when I knew it was like for supporting thing for a problem, or what, like the empowerment class I took to like then be the solution.
Yeah, let's hear your 2 vivid moments real quick.
Okay, so I have this is a lot, so I'm gonna warn you, but like the morning after I was raped, I like literally sat there and I was like, I don't know what that was. I don't know who to tell. I don't know. It never crossed my mind to tell anyone, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up just texting this person back because he had texted me. And I vividly remember in that moment completely surrendering, like I give up, like I can't do anything. And that turned into a 6-year abusive relationship. And I stayed in that relationship until there's a couple vivid moments, but it wasn't until I met my best friend now, who told me over and over, you are beautiful. I went to an empowerment class where they explained boundaries to me. They educated me on what sexual assault was. And it just like all came together, and all of a sudden I was able to leave. I knew what I had to do. I moved to Colorado and I'm here. So
those are both going to be part of your talk.
Okay.
2 vivid moments. Yep.
Okay.
And see if you can pick out of that, few months process of being in the class and them explaining, see if you can pick out one moment where you went, I'm leaving, or okay, I see it, or any little breakthrough you had similar to I give up.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? We need to hear the opposite end of that.
Okay.
Beautiful, Morgan.
Can I throw something, just toss it in? I know that's short time, but I just got thrown in. My dad, yay, my dad, if a woman was raped, he was asking for it. So that was it. So when I was raped, then clearly I was asking for it, so I deserved it. So I was not going to tell anybody because I clearly asked for it. If I had gone home and said, hey, Pops, this is what happened, well, you asked for it. So, I mean, I had nothing to draw on.
That is an old status quo. I hope that one's been broken, but I know it's still out there.
Yeah.
I know it is. Okay, who's next? I forgot to look at my next sheet. Sorry. Linda.
Okay. I'm just going to read what I journaled, so hopefully it'll go quick. The problem is secrets affect your physical and mental health. They affect your relationships and your ability to be authentic with yourself and others. They can lead to isolation, loneliness, heart disease, diabetes, brain disorders, and mental health problems, including suicide. When your brain processes secrets between reality, this might be part of the research, and what really happened, and between reality, what really happened, and interpretation, what you think happened, becomes confused and melded together. Secrets beget secrets and creates a web of internal confusion without an outlet to process truth. This creates stress, and stress is proven to release chemicals into the body that create physical and mental health problems.
Okay.
Something like that.
So I can't, I want to believe you that secrets can create health problems, that rings true to me, but I really still need to paint a picture, or I need to see a picture of how. Yes, we're getting some nods. Like, do we quite buy this, that the problem behind some of these issues, she mentioned diabetes, mental health, physical health, I'm not completely bought in that it's secrets. How do you know that?
Well, I'll have the research to be able to back that up. I'm not sharing the research right now because that wasn't
Right. That's
the
not
deal. So all I'm doing is sharing the problem.
right.
But in listening to the other TED Talks and in my own personal life, that has happened and rung true.
That has happened and rung true. Okay, so that could be part of your experience.
I'd like to know what a person who's keeping secrets, what's that like for them? Like, what are they going through in that process, and what's even motivating them to keep it a secret?
Yeah, and
what's behind that?
What are we talking about? Like, what is a secret that you would, not want to tell so bad that it would cost you, could create cancer or whatever?
Yeah, because I just want to say that, like, if I bought my husband a great big, cool Christmas present, but I'm keeping it a secret, am I going to get diabetes because I'm keeping it so
Yeah.
I think
Okay, well, let me just share my little personal one first. When I was 6 years old, I have a memory of my 3 siblings and my father standing outside an open bathroom door in our home. My mom was curled in a fetal position between the toilet and the wall. My mother said that mom was sick and had to go away for a while. He said, "This is a secret. No one can know about this." My mom was bipolar and violent. She beat my father and us kids. The secrets of what actually was happening weighed on me. My mother tried to kill me and my other members of my family. And my dad would say, "Don't tell anyone or you will be taken away from us." And then I developed migraines, and as a teenager, and then I told the secret to social services and my migraines went away. So there were certain instances that happened in my life that I recognized that the secrets needed to be told. To this day, my father still tells secrets. Like everything is a secret. Everything is a secret. And I grew up in a family where everything is a secret. You cannot tell or talk about anything. When Morgan was talking, that was one of the things, is I couldn't tell people, you can't tell people about these things that are happening in your life, in many cases, because of what actually might happen or what you think will happen or things like that. And internalizing all of that and isolating yourself and not being authentic, whether that's not going to therapy to talk about it with a therapist, or not being able to share authentically who you are, actually internalizes into your body.
And what, okay, so, I mean, that paints a more vivid picture, right? When she shares her story, for sure. We know what categories you're talking about now. So why wouldn't someone share this secret? Like, what were you afraid of happening? Just disappointing your dad, or were there more? What are people generally afraid of too, is the other end of that?
Yeah, so I was afraid of, I was a child. So as a child, you can't go against your parents. I was also a perfectionist, so I was actually my dad's pseudo wife in our very enmeshed, crazy family, and so I had to keep secrets, and all of us had to keep secrets,
or
else we might not be in the house anymore, or we might cause more anger within the house, or we might get beat more, or just like every day was, who knows what's going to happen next. So and in my situation, it was deadly. I mean, my mom you know, was mentally ill, and, you know, she attempted to kill us, and in different scenarios. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of dangers with keeping the secrets, and there were dangers with telling the secrets. And of course, there's privacy too, and I'm willing to talk about that, because there are privacy, like there are things we don't want to talk about, but there are safe ways to go and talk about them, like a therapist, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And so some things, of course, we're not going to necessarily talk about, but we actually have to start to externalize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those secrets turn into lies to ourselves, where we no longer understand the truth, especially when you're a child trying to process things and you're being told not to tell things. So you're not necessarily processing everything that's happening that are these traumatic experiences in your life.
Okay. Okay, I think we see where you're coming from. I'm going to do one more minute for some feedback. Is there anything else you need to know from Linda that she can work on this week?
Well, it seems to me that in talking about secrets that you need to tie it to the effects of the threats, the fear, the isolation, because as we know, not all secrets, of course, will do that. And it doesn't affect everybody exactly the same way. But when there are those elements with it, then it does, especially from a child's point of view who doesn't have any other source but to believe in those things that are unfounded. So
Mm-hmm.
I think those elements need to be clear. Otherwise, people will have trouble connecting to it.
Yeah, because it really isn't about, oh, I'm going to keep a secret from my husband about the gift that I bought him.
Sure.
It's not those kind of secrets.
Yeah, and you need
There's
to
a
clearly
truth that will
define
be
that.
coming out eventually on that, like a,
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
or
I would
maybe
like
you
to
say
see.
a feeling, you know, like you decide not to tell somebody that their hair looks like crap that day.
Right. So let's make sure you have some time in your talk to clearly define that, and to also name some secrets that adults might keep too. Because your example is about you as a kid, but we as adults can connect to secrets we might keep as adults.
Mm-hmm.
You know, financial hardship or illness or, you know, different things like that. Morgan, did you have something?
Yeah, just quick, I would encourage you to maybe just think about the word shame in that. I've heard, and same with you, Mary, both of you, like the word shame and everything Brene Brown has talked about with shame, I think really relate to your guys' problem.
Cool, thank you.
Not your problems, but the problems you're talking about.
Yeah, great. Cool. Okay. Let's keep moving over to Mary Rust.
Okay, we'll see if my camera stays on. This is the weirdest glitchy days that I've had. So this last week, I might have changed my talk title. I wasn't going to go the cancer route, but a lot of people resonated with it. So a potential new talk title is Why Cancer is Your Greatest Gift. And so I started it, which is totally different than what I was going to go with, but I'm like, okay, let's see where it goes. So I tried to play off of the title with the problem so that it ties in, and you're going to have to let me know if it's connecting. The problem is we are waging war against cancer, and we treat it like it is an enemy. We attack cancer with chemotherapy, burn it with radiation, and try to cut it out with surgery. This is our current approach to cancer. Wait, no. And while this is an approach to cancer, the cancer problem, maybe we need to ask ourselves, is it really working? Are we really winning the war on cancer, or are we simply continuing to battle it? Are we really healing, or are we just fighting? Is there another way? Are we simply treating symptoms but not addressing the cause?
I really like that as a problem. I think that's really relatable. We talk about cancer that way. I would definitely pull in super specific examples, maybe even headlines right? The fight against cancer.
Oh, current headlines.
Current headlines, right? That are,
Okay.
so it's not you just framing it, but you're showing examples of the culture being, somebody lost their battle.
Yeah.
Somebody,
Yes.
whatever. That's just like constantly in fight terms.
Yeah, and constantly surviving. You know, we talk about cancer survivors. And for me personally, I could do this in my story too. Surviving wasn't enough for me because surviving is like barely getting by.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to thrive.
Yeah.
Which is beyond surviving, and yet we're glorifying this surviving term. And quite frankly, surviving sucks.
I do
it really does, right?
I get a picture of like this person in the desert, like, I survived, barely hanging on.
That's what we really want, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else we need from her to connect to this as a problem? Yeah, I think all those words that you listed, the burn, the cut, the this and that of how we're approaching it, the war, the battle, the fight is really good. Okay, let's hear your vivid moments.
Okay. So I want to tie in a little bit with the gift because that's always, I think Mary mentioned it last time, is you kind of like that word gift. So I'm playing off of that. In my life, I have found that cancer came into my life for a greater purpose. It wasn't a disease that needed to be conquered. It came to me to be received and heard. It had a deeper message. When I was 18, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She fought long and hard with chemotherapy, radiation, surgeries, and drugs. She fought hard for 4 years. 2 weeks before she passed, she gave me a gift. She said to me, Mary, this isn't the way to cure cancer. There has to be another way that the body can heal itself. At the time, I didn't know what those words meant. But 2 days after my 36th birthday, I received a call that no woman wants to hear. I received a call from my oncologist that said, you have breast cancer. And it was in that moment that life sped up and slowed down at the same time. And I was left with a choice. Do I want to heal or do I want to fight? And the gift that I received that day was a gift of healing. Instead of choosing chemo, radiation, drugs, and surgery, I decided to heal instead of fight. And through the process, I was not only able to heal my body physically, I was able to heal mentally, spiritually, and emotionally.
Cool. Lots of good stuff in there. Awesome. So I can totally picture that. I can picture the phone. I can picture mom. I'm getting a lot of the pictures. You guys are getting a picture from that? Yeah. It's really, really great, Mary. So what I would offer you to take you to your next level is really bringing us to that decision of fight or heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so a little bit more of the fears of, showing that you're like, what if chemo could heal it? What if chemo could take care of it? Am I really going to go down this scary path? I know a little bit more of your story here, but just making sure that you stay human is my main goal here. Making sure that you stay relatable to us. Where we would, what a normal person, I guess, would think in that moment, which is, oh crap, I have cancer, So just flesh that out a little bit. And I think
Amanda, do you think, because in the book that I just wrote too, it was so interesting how it came out, but it was all about these dialogues in my mind of, this, the fear, and the doctors and everybody outside of me was saying, if you don't do this, you're going to die. And yet there was this quiet voice, and the voice of my mother, that said, trust me, I have you. There's another way to heal. And it was just such a huge conflict internally for me before I made that decision. So, and every cancer,
There you go.
yeah, and every cancer patient I talk to, that fear is almost insurmountable.
Yeah.
It really is. And I get it. And the miracle, I've always said the miracle isn't that my body healed, because our bodies are designed to heal. The miracle was that I was able to listen to this intuition and follow through with it. So do you think I should kind of play that? Is that going to make it more relatable to people where they're like, well, who is she? You know?
I think so, you guys.
Okay.
When she was talking about the voices and the doctors and the everybody in her life versus the still small voice, to me,
Yeah.
that is so
Okay.
vivid and powerful. And it thank you, because those are the fears I would have. That is the voice I would think I would have, Linda?
Yeah, I first of all, I really connect with the thriver versus survivor, because a lot of people have called me a survivor, and I actually always consider myself a thriver. And also, like in my own life recently, in getting into a wheelchair and back out of the wheelchair again, I had to use alternative ways of healing my body in order for that to happen, because the doctors were like, we don't have anything else for you. But I knew that I needed to continue down a path to find those alternatives. And sometimes for people, they're like, well, you have to do what the doctor says. The doctor says to do this and this and this and this. And in my head, throughout my whole life, it's always been, well, you do what the doctor says.
Sure.
And if the doctor says there's nothing else we can do for you, it's kind of like, well, I'm still here. Like, okay. And so maybe in your journey, just kind of share it. It really brings that human part of it to people who are like, well, that's all foo-foo stuff, and I'm not, that's
Right.
not me, and that kind of thing. To this, like, if you have to consider the options, here's the options. And when you have those options in front of you and you figure out and find out that it works, that's when people start to open up their mind, I think, to other options.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing also, a big part of what Linda's saying is that she needs to hear you talk about that, I don't know what it is, that mainstream or society fear voice of doctors and testing and chemo, and you got to bring that in. So yeah.
Can I throw something in? We're trained. I mean, if anybody watches TV for an hour a day, the commercials that we see about all these illnesses and all these drugs that we can take, I mean, people watch this commercial and then they'll go down to their doctor the next day and say, I need this. No, you don't. We're so to take these drugs, to take this. So I don't know if you want to add big pharma into it. I don't know if that's where you're headed, or whatever. But I mean, study after study I've read says we've got a cure for cancer, but it won't make anybody $1 million. So we're sticking with chemo because that's where people make money. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I almost think it would be more powerful. It would be most powerful that you did go the opposite route than that, and yeah, you can decide later if you want to bring in the reason that this is not talked about, because it's not a moneymaker.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think that waters it down. Sometimes it's really powerful. So
yeah, it could go so many directions. And part of the way I was going to start it, which didn't come through today, is really cancer is a call for change. And it's a call for change on how we are in relationship with ourselves as well as the world. And I was even thinking going in and saying, the collective cancer that we have, because it's not only an interior problem, but you look at the world today and there are cancers growing all over the place. And we need to look at that and say, do we want to continue doing this the same way? Or is it a call for interior as well as collective change? And I thought about going that route with this too. I don't know which direction would be more relatable.
Well, let's stay here as the main part of the talk, But I'll just bring up this slide again because we're going to talk about homework in a second anyway, of the larger application, the big picture of what's possible. That's where you can zoom out and go really big picture, all of you, on what is really possible if we get the concept, in Mary's case, of not battling, but listening to issues, right? That's her big picture kind of application for every type of problem that we think of as a battle, the war on drugs, the literal wars, you know, all that stuff. So you can possibly work it in that you go really zoomed out. You know, maybe there's a way to heal rather than battle every problem that we face.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just one sentence that leaves people, lets that door open if people are ready to go there. And it also could be something you incorporate in more like a 15-minute versus an 8-minute. Got to play with that too. Got it, yeah. Cool. Okay, great. And of course, we have Dana over here. Dana, tell us describe your problem to us.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna read what I wrote. I'm just gonna read it and then plow ahead. The problem is hate without basis or without ground. Prejudice, prejudging, blanket judging, or I call it personal profiling. That's like when I personally look at one person and hate that person because of something. All without knowing that person. And what this causes, so this causes fear because of a lack of understanding, and that causes hate. Not talking about your gut feeling like you're driving down the street and you need gas and you say, ooh, that's not very well lit. That's not that kind of fear. I'm talking about, that's a gut feeling. But overall, prejudging, my father was very prejudiced, and maybe he had a reason, maybe the era he grew up in, he had been in prison before me. Although he used ethnic slurs, he worked with and for people of all different backgrounds. He hired them. He paid them all the same. And then I saw that not all people of color, whatever color, I saw that they were not all bad. And there's more good people than bad people from every ethnic background. Taking the time to know these people brings understanding and peace. He was also a sexist. All women fell into two categories, whores or cows. And I grew up with this as his opinion of women. So my mother and my sister were cows, and that left me. This also falls under prejudging, misunderstanding, and hate. And then I could always tell my Elliot Bland story, the black kid that I used to go walk home from school. So that's kind of what I have in a nutshell.
Okay, that's the problem. Okay. And Dana, you know, I know your title that you're working with is Everything I Need to Know About Inclusion I Learned from My Racist Father, right?
Uh-huh.
So your big idea, are we still going with your big idea is something around, you know, what we can learn from these maybe possible racists in our lives, or how we can include them, or, you know, where are we going with this? Because I really want you to say something new. You know, this message needs to be said again. It really does. But I also want you to really make sure you're saying it in a way that no one else has.
Well, because what I want to say is understand first. Because I may still end up hating you, even though I understand you, but I want to understand you first and then say, you're not the person that I need in my life. So I want to bring to the table that when you see somebody across the room wearing a hijab and you go, oh, Muslim, terrorist, that's probably not true. I mean, it's probably not true. So go over and meet them, talk to them, ask them questions. You're muted.
Sorry about that.
That's it.
Okay.
I want to know what the problem is. I mean, I get that there's prejudice, but why is that a problem? Like, what, your dad didn't think it was a problem. Why is it a problem?
Because prejudice equals hate. And hate is what causes war. Hate is what causes, name any protest and some guy drives a car through it or blah, 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 any of that. And I don't want to bring up those individual things, but the whole point is, if we as a society were to promote understanding, there would not be hate. And there's going to always be, a leader somewhere going to blow up somebody with a nuclear something, and that's lifelong. But we as individuals can change the world by understanding one person at a time. That's what I think.
Okay, I'm like really looking for the problem that we can solve in a new way, because your dad is a generation where that was more normal, and now so much has happened to teach new things. In fact, you even, being your dad's kid, you still had enough of society around you supporting this new perspective that you did not develop the prejudices of your dad. And you were super close to the issue. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you do believe that your dad hated the other races, even though he paid them the same, he employed them. When he spoke of them as mere descriptions. The ethnic slurs were descriptions. They weren't, abrasive arrows he was slinging. They were describing them.
And the thing is, if he were alive today, I'd really ask him, did you really hate all those people? I'd really want to know, really, because I don't know. And it makes a better story if he truly hated everybody, and if he's dead, no one can dispute it. But the thing is, like, he would, he might say, yeah, those red-headed girls, you know how they are, Well, okay, so if you have red hair, well, you know how you are, No, because not all red-headed girls do the same thing, So everything to him was in a bucket, All black people, N-word, all Hispanic people, S-word, all Italian people, D-word, everybody was in a bucket. And even though he spoke with them, he worked with them, they were still in that bucket.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would rather have buckets of, these are people I'd like happy, loving, understanding buckets, not hateful buckets.
Okay. Linda?
I actually believe that we have had an increase in racism and sexism over the last several years. There may be some data regarding that, but there is a lot of talk in our society. And I do think that when you describe the problem with actual current events, like the guy that drove the car through the crowd and killed that girl, that those actually come to people's minds, and that becomes important, because the problem is that racism and sexism and other isms can actually be deadly. And you may be, just kind of in your life, and in the past that was actually true. I mean, we have the history of lynchings and things like that. But even today, it's happening where this group of neo-Nazi people, doing the riots, and there's other people that were not, and all of a sudden, someone drives a car through and kills a person. And that just happened a
Recently.
year or two ago. So
I
it's
mean,
relevant today, where I think actually describing the current events is a really good thing, and describing it that, you know, this is very dangerous in our society, and that the solution to that is for us to be able to talk, and talk in a way, and maybe you have some
to
ideas
understand first.
about how we can start those or hold those conversations, because a lot of people don't, they just want to live in their fear of someone else,
Of other.
you know. So how do you do that? How do you actually talk now? How do you, because what's happened isn't working still in our society, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think we're still holding these prejudices, even if we don't consider ourselves a prejudiced person, we still all have these prejudices. So how do we actually do that? And do you have a solution for that, Dana?
Yeah, let's hear from Morgan, and I just want to read one thing I wrote down. You know, racism is not gone. Is a problem that I'm hearing now, because I think of it as no one would ever just use those words casually, like you describing your dad, but that's not necessarily true. And racism is not gone. So Morgan, and then I swear I'll give you your homework.
So I grew up in a very diverse environment. My best friend is Muslim and wears a hijab, and I would like to point out that you're right. A lot of people look at her, and I think a lot of people think that they're not prejudiced and would never identify as being prejudiced, but they have these fears. They do put people in like buckets, and I notice a significant difference walking around with her, and the way that people look away immediately, will not make eye contact with her. And it's so interesting because they're missing out on so many positive things that could come from relationships with these people, because that person that everyone thinks is puts in this category as a terrorist is the one who sat there, and her whole family was the one that really supported me in getting out of my situation. So it's like, if people could drop those, there's so many beautiful things that could happen. So I think that's one thing you could include for that number 5 or whatever, that long term, like if this was to be solved, there's so many positive things that could come from it.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Okay, cool. I'm happy to stay on and finish up Dana's time, but I really want to get you guys going if you need to go. And your homework would then be to flesh these out more. If there's anything more you want to say to me or run by me, please write these 2 prompts in an email, anything about the problem or anything about your vivid moments of what you found in your life. And then the third is to start gathering some research that supports your idea. Just do that at least initial round of finding someone else's credible opinion. So not just any article that you can find on Google or Facebook, but an article that has some weight behind it. Can be a school, can be a journal, even a highly reputable like the Guardian or the Times or something like that, that is a magazine that everybody would recognize. Certainly any scientific studies that have actual science used in them would be good. Things like that. Okay, I don't know, crazy idea. Yeah, okay. And we'll be talking about it next week, but it's something that just takes some time. You can't do it in class, so use this time between now and then. Okay,
Right.
You have to jump off. Thank you so much. And if you can stick around, and anything else you want to say, Dana?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think it's, I have to start teaching it to make it make sense to me.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I wrote down some notes that I'll text you about it too. But I think there's some really good meat here, and I think there's some element of, because racism isn't accepted anymore, then the racism hasn't disappeared, it's just gone underground.
Yeah.
And
Because
now,
we're trying to be politically correct.
right, exactly.
And can
Linda?
I say one other thing that I've also noticed it in many other facets of life, like people who are too skinny are anorexic, people who are overweight are lazy, people who are redheaded are sluts, people who are disabled on some level are faking it, people who are, you know, like there's a whole like thing about this prejudging that occurs that impacts our ability to be able to have relationships with people and talk to people and just be human. And so I think it goes even beyond, you know, some of the isms that we would talk about, but just relating to people and learning, figuring out how to stop our own prejudices to be able to have those. And some of it I've noticed when I was in the wheelchair more, that it's fear, like people are afraid, oh my God, if that can happen to her, that can happen to me, you know? And so some of it's like, there's a lot of reasons maybe behind all of that, and how people press past that internally within their own lives to be able to start to have those conversations. And I think that's what's not being talked about.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, I've even talked to a short person once. Yeah, I did. Yeah, they were real nice.
What? You talked to a what?
No, I've talked to one.
Oh, I still can't.
Yeah, broke up. Did you say short person? Yeah, a short person. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually talked to a lot of tall people. And when I talk to somebody shorter than me, I feel really superior.
Yeah.
It's a problem internally because I'm almost always the shortest one.
Awesome, ladies. Excellent job. You'll be hearing from me. I'll send you a picture of your notes again today so you can see what I wrote down. And yeah, Mary?
Are you sending out a link for the recordings?
I haven't been. Would you like one?
Yeah, I think so, just in case.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that sounds
And
great.
what about the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, I can send that. Well, it'll be on the recording.
Mhm.
Would you like it separately too? Maybe a PDF of it? Okay. All right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that'll become important too. Like, you know, we missed Heather today. It's okay if you miss a session. I'd love to have everybody at every session, you know, and it's so great to have your feedback for each other. So if you do have to miss, please let me know.
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Great work, everybody.
Bye.
Super awesome. Bye.